we'll move on to side 2. Red Guitars.
Russell could tell you about this one. He sings it.
You used to sing that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, I did, then I nicked it off him.
Give us your Red Guitars story, Russell.
I can't really remember a story about it. Why I was given it in the first place, and because I always sung it live.
Yeah, and it started up. Maybe we all thought about we're going to try and be one of those kind of bands, John, that it wasn't just a lead singer. We all a bit like the Birds did or the Beatles did. You know, when George was singing one, right? You know, we wanted to try and spread it around the band. You know, just because it looked good as well.
I was George.
Yeah, and that song just suited Russell from day one. It was kind of written by him in mind. You know, he had a red guitar obviously from the start. You know, and we wanted. It was just. It is, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, it was just to you know, we wanted to make a statement, but I mean, as you're going to find out on the second side, we were all quite political at that point. You know, we were all quite into what was going on in the country.
I used to love singing it because it was the most like the Clash out of all the songs we had.
Yeah.
You know, the slightly Clash message to it a little bit.
Yeah. There's a good version of it. There's a good version of it in Ogre Whistle. So Robert sings a song, I sing a song, and Russell sings Red Guitars. That's a really good version of it.
Yeah,
that was the perfect moment that Russell Taste, because that was our kind of ethos at the start, was to be a band. You know what I mean? You know.
What's interesting about Red Guitars, the Ogre Whistle Test thing is, we were the first unsigned band ever on Ogre Whistle Test.
Oh yeah, really?
We had been signed at the time. Yeah.
our first rehearsal had only been about a year and a half before us been on Oakley Whistle Test. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So were you
We're
in the
cocky as
studio?
fuck on it.
Was it live or were you in the studio?
I was
No, it was live.
Yeah.
It was what was quite funny was
live.
when we arrived, the psychedelic force were. It was like a bit. It was just like in a big studio. It was like in a big sort of warehouse sort of thing. And psychedelic force were up one end, and they had a fucking massive PA. It looked like, you know, a band playing the Apollo or something like that. Loads of lights and all that. And then the guy came over and said, the floor man came over and said, guys, can you just put your PA over there? And we said, what PA? What lights? We didn't have PA or lights. And he says, you need to bring fucking PA and lights. So whoever the manager hadn't told us this. And so the manager went round about Shepherd's Bush looking for a PA. So he eventually got a disco PA from a disco guy and a couple of wee fanny lights, a couple of wee flashing lights. So we were on this wee daft stage and they had roadies and all that and fucking lighting guys and sound guys. But the Chad Valley and the Pifco, there was an H&H PA, if I remember correctly, two columns. Two columns. And but it sounded fine in the telly, it was fine.
Yeah.
All right, we'll laugh.
Yeah, I'll need to dig that one out. I'm guessing
It's on YouTube, it's good.
Yeah. I'll check that one out. Okay. Second track, Syracuse University. Who's the one to kick that one off?
Oh, that's the only song we ever kind of really wrote on a tour. We were actually near Syracuse University when that came about. Russell wasn't in the band at this point anymore, but I think he was able to do the writing when I was.
No, that was a completely new song.
But we did America. It's the only song I could think of. It was about. I was obsessed with Lou Reed at the time, and like he went to that university, and I was going to write about him being at university, this kind of really arty university, but I found out it was actually quite a military. It was quite a military-based university. A lot of the students ended up in the armaments business, you know,
Right.
and that was basically disappointing for me, because I thought it was like this kind of like philosophy, you know, like the Bojar kind of place, and you find out it's got a military core and all this, you know, and it's like, you know, they spend 7 years and they learn how to make missiles and, you know, and bullets and ballistics. So that was let's look at that. Brilliant. That's great.
Got the jackets.
Yeah.
I got the stuff. All the stuff, I tell you.
That really did suit Craig Garron's guitar playing and things, and so that was a kind of later recording, yeah, as we entered our political phase.
Yeah, so that Lou Reed went there, did he?
Yeah.
Aye.
And it's a great. I love it. It's a great word, Syracuse. It's great.
Yeah.
Title.
Well, I think the whole second half, we'll go into it in more detail in the next bunch of songs, but it was quite a political time, really, because you had the miners' strike. See, every time we were driving about Yorkshire or Lancashire or something like that, we get stopped for being flying pickets and searched.
Yeah,
we didn't look like miners. We looked like a bunch of wee fannies, but you know, like they would stop and search us and go, "Are you miners? Are you miners?" We didn't look like miners at all, but you know what I mean. But with a white van, and there was IRA bombings. There was all sorts of things going on.
I think you're right, though. There was a lot of political stuff going on. You know, even things like the riots as well. You know, down
That's
south.
right, yeah.
You know, the miners' strike. You know,
Falklands War.
You know, and so on and so forth. And obviously everything that's happened up in Scotland as well with the, you know, industry as well.
Yeah. And out of that, you got the Red Wedge thing as well. So you got Red Wedge and you got the Billy Bragg stuff, and the Style Council and all these guys were all part of that kind of thing. So a lot of pop was political. And Bronski Beat and all that, they were all quite political. The Communards and all that.
Yeah. A lot of really great music came out of that.
Yeah, because you had Thatcher running riot.
Yeah.
You know, Thatcher was running riot. It was just the new part of people. You could buy your council house. You could fucking, you know, you could be your own businessman if you want to be a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, buy your own burger van. You know.
Shipbuilding, that was another classic from them.
What was that?
What?
Shipbuilding.
Shipbuilding, yeah.
Elvis.
That was written about the Falklands War, yeah.
By Elvis.
Yeah. Building the ships, and then the ships go away to war, and then you know.
You make money out of it.
Yeah.
Diving for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
you'll be diving for pearls with all the well in the world. Be diving for pearls.
Great song.
It's a cracking track, isn't it? And obviously, I think was it Robert Wyatt did it as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
I do.
Robert, you get pulled up. Robert get pulled up on Twitter last week for using a quote from it.
By Pat Kane.
By Pat Kane.
Pat Kane said you shouldn't be taking this song in vain.
Yeah.
And Robert went, I'm not.
I said, well, I know. He goes, and then one of his friends wrote, do you even know, have you ever even heard the song? I was like, we were there with fucking slack even in the
He wrote it.
It was same publishing company as us, wasn't it?
Yeah, John, it just stopped the whole conversation's going dead, man. You know, it's like, you know.
Again, not included in the original, but Aim in Life, another lovely, great song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came about. It was Dave and I were in a punk band called Rodeo when we were at school, and Dave and I had a paper job, and it was a new Barratt home. You know, like your Barratt homes and all these houses. Yeah. It's where we're from, both. You know, it's a nice wee village and all that. It's a couple of schemes, a nice big posh bit, and then they kept on building these new houses like they're everywhere. Barratt homes or fucking Bovis homes and all that. So this was a Barratt estate, and it was all new families, you know, families with one or two kids, and they had no front gardens at the time. It was all still cement bags in the garden and fucking, broken bits of windows, all that. So people were moving in when the houses were still getting built. And we noticed the biggest Barratt home, there was this woman, she lived in it herself, this big, huge Barratt home. It's 5 bedrooms in it. And we'd deliver her paper. And she would just come to the door, but she only lived in one room. The rest of the windows were all filthy and, dusty and smashed. And it was like a wrecked, brand new house. And I peeked through the curtains a couple of times. There's a wee hole in the curtains. And she lay on a sleeping bag, watching the telly. And she had no furniture. And she got 48 eggs a week delivered. So she ate 48 eggs a week. At first, the song was called Eggy. She had a bit of a beard as well. So the song was called Eggy Beard. And that was too cruel. So it was called Aiming Life. And it was quite a fast song. So it's about an eccentric woman who lives on her own in a big, huge house. And she's 48 eggs a week.
That's the question, right? But we went down to record that song. We did it with Elvis, the first song I did with Elvis. Right? How did we get to that version?
Because I started jamming it in the studio, just playing it.
I remember it well.
And I'd found out what an E major 7th was for the middle of it.
We didn't rehearse it.
We weren't recording it. What happened was
we never rehearsed
in between recording another song, and Ken, in the downtime, as we're fiddling about, was just singing it on his own in the vocal room. Yeah. And Elvis was sitting at the desk and he was suddenly like, hang on a minute, what the fuck's that? Shush.
Yeah.
What is that, Ken? And he went straight to it, he's like, I want to do that song.
Yeah.
So we hadn't, I don't think, had we even ever played it?
We never played it. David and I had played it as Raw Deal, but we hadn't played it as that version.
I don't think we had either, I don't think we'd ever done it that way,
No. And now it's on the album, because originally it was it a B-side?
It was a B-side of Forevermore.
Forevermore.
First single. Yeah.
So glad
it was a kind of trick. It was kind of just a lucky sort of break. He overheard me. Yeah. So I was just practicing it because I found out what E major 7th was. I wanted to fit it in. I fit it in how it did.
But that was as well one of the first sort of times that it was you and Dave doing the beautiful harmony.
Yeah.
Which you'd obviously go on.
Yeah. So the harmonies are based on it. Yeah.
That was an amazing moment when you saw when you first saw because the two of you hadn't really done many harmonies together sort of within our songs, but I remember the first time hearing that when you.
It was the first time we did the close harmony, but we'd done hundreds of back vocals layered. It was the first time we did. It was the first time we did a strip back two harmonies. Yeah.
Just you and Dave, beautiful.
Quite interesting though. I mean, you talk about the origin of the song is being a lot faster, punkier to ultimately what it became, and that journey, I guess, to from start to finish, pretty remarkable, I suppose, when you think about the change in the song.
Yeah, I think especially when as Ken says, and I think there was an early demo somewhere where we did a kind of punk version of it because we were into punk at the time, and this is some years earlier. But quite kind of rough and kind of choppy and energetic, but a totally different song. But
it's on YouTube as well.
It's on past. When you slowed it down and stripped it down, it was like, hold on. I mean, I was even like, what's that? I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
It was just because you had just randomly.
I was just playing about some chords, but if you want to hear the original version, it's on YouTube and it's called Eggy Beard. The studio Raw Deal recorded it, and we did it in a studio which is in Straven, and it was above a tailor shop, and it's where Orange Juice recorded Falling and Laughing, and it's where James King and Lone Wolves recorded Singing in the Shower. It was above a tailor shop. It's called Emblem Studios in Straven.
Definitely.
And when the guy was the engineer was a tailor, so when somebody came to buy a pair of trousers, they rang the bell and he had to go down and sell them the trousers or whatever it was in the studio.
It's like a Monty Python sketch.
Tailor stroke engineer.
It's like two Ronnies.
True.
Yeah.
Magic. Okay. Moving on. Learn to Love.
was Ken's
What
song.
year
And
as well, Ken?
that was I'm Falling in Reverse. Ken had the song that had a bit that fitted into his song this time. So I'll let Ken tell you that one.
I kind of like the kind of idea by this point, because we all sort of different kind of influences. I kind of quite fancied doing something kind of soul-y. There was a kind of soul-y sort of. There's a lot of. I mean, the clubs we went to were soul-y clubs, so we'd go to, you'd go down to the Whiskey a Go Go or something like that, or one of the clubs in Soho. Robert, tell me the name of the club in Soho. The Wag Club and all that.
We went to,
The Wag Club and all that, and it was. We were right into Northern Soul, but we didn't play that type of music. We had a couple of wee tries at it with the Young at Heart, the Northern Soul Young at Heart, but I could always quite fancy that. So I quite fancy doing something in that kind of vein, and same thing. And that was really about the Falklands War. There's a couple about the Falklands War in this, but this was kind of directly about it. And then it was all against all the jingoism and all that shit, and up the Belgrano and all that kind of stuff, gotcha and all that. It was against all those kind of Sun newspaper headlines. And then Robert added the chorus bit. Will they learn to love? So again, it's the opposite of what happened before, yeah. So I had two bits and Robert had another bit, so that was us rocking. But it was a kind of quite a political song, but it was using that. The kids were into soul music. Kids were into that kind of retro idea of kind of old Northern Soul and Rare Groove. It's the beginning of Rare Groove and all that kind of stuff.
And it was like we loved Dexys before they went. It's funny because people think we liked Dexys because of the fiddles, but we liked Dexys when they had all the brass, and they had the
dance and all that.
Gino Washington stuff.
Yeah, and we wanted to get a feel for that. And also, it's funny, John, guess who sings on that record? Guess who the girl is on that singing?
Is it? I think. Is it Eddie? It's Eddie Reader, isn't it?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah. She does a fantastic job with it, man. It's like that was produced by a guy called Alan Shacklock, who did kind of a lot. He did Dexy's follow-up band called The Bureau, and I think he did some Dexy stuff too in the Alarm, but he did a great job with it. I think.
Did she not sing? She sang with the Eurythmics and all that, but before that, she sang with the Gang of Four.
Yeah, Gang of Four. That's right.
But Ken and Eddie and that. Totally give it loudy. You should. The end part of that is amazing. The two of your voices work brilliantly together.
But the guy Alan Shatler did a really good thing. The microphone, it's all round, so you can open it 360 degrees. So they got her like this and me like this, and she got it like that. It was amazing. She could sing with anything. You harmonise with a stone, as they say.
Did you know her then? From Glasgow.
She was getting plenty of work as a session singer. She'd come from the kind of folk. She was kind of goth folk, so she sang in all the folk sessions and all that.
John, our brother's in the Trash Cans and artists. He's singing on the Trash Cans.
Yeah.
I think.
It ended up going full circle, and then later, we've played with Trash Can Sinatras and did some tracks, and Trash Cans made that connection. Frank Reader. Oh, you're Eddie's brother. Oh, we worked with Eddie years ago.
Yeah, she's absolutely. I mean, she's brilliant. She's a fantastic singer, technical singer. She's really brilliant.
Oh, aye. Yeah, brilliant. All right, and then the next song. I think you've changed the order here in the last two songs compared to the
original,
initial release. So I guess South Atlantic Way.
Oh
Again, quite I think a political.
Yeah, that's all
song.
Kenny.
Yeah. Do you want to take this one, David?
Yeah, Kenny and Dave wrote this one.
With Dominic Bean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
South Atlantic Way. I mean, that was a song at the time. We ended up writing some songs with Dominic Behan, and Dominic, Irish playwright, brother of Brendan Behan, and songwriter.
He was our dad's pal.
He was our dad's. He was our dad's pal. So, my dad was always into kind of kind of Irish heritage stuff and sort of folk music, and had met maybe in his 40s, and it was a bit like my dad had been a big fan of his work, and then met him one time in Larkhall, and it was like, of all places. So ended up becoming a family friend, and we met Dominic's wife and family and stuff, and these kids. But we always had parties. Part of the kind of family heritage was, music, obviously. So at parties, you'd be asked to, sing a song, or, if you want to stay up, you want to stay up late, you've got to do a song, or you've got to do a turn, You'd be sitting there just absorbing all these amazing voices, and, there'd be a next door neighbour that was like Frank Sinatra, there'd be a Dean Martin who was the postman, It was quite a kind of ballad singers and kind of folk singers. And Dominic would recite, poetry, and would sing all these really obscure kind of Irish songs. And we'd be sitting going, wow, taking all that. So obviously we'd been through the punk thing, and we were starting to write a lot of songs. And Dominic had listened to some of our stuff. He's like, why don't we write together? So South Atlantic Way came out of this kind of sessions, but we're really just sessions we had in the house, actually. And just throwing about some ideas, and he was listening to stuff that influenced us, like punk, and the Clash and the Pistols and stuff, and that kind of sensibility, and then things that affected us, and then he would relate his stories of all the things that affected him.
It's based on it's about a guy going to the Falklands War. It's about a guy going to the Falklands War, kids going to the Falklands War. So and everything goes with that, the sort of jingoism and the idea of getting caught up in all that patriotism. Which will take us on to the Patriot game in a minute. But yeah, it was our idea of a young guy getting sold out down the river.
Yeah. And I think it was those two perspectives, because obviously we were sort of teenagers, and there was that real kind of, Cold War tension where it was very possible that we'd have been called up to the army, we'd have been conscripted. I mean, that was actually on the cards under Thatcher. That was one of the horrors of Thatcherism. The Falklands War, something that was completely unnecessary. We could have been called up. And then he related it to, his, troubles in Ireland and things that he had faced, and the whole kind of imperial British Empire kind of hangover, of colonialism. So there's a lot of different themes coming from his perspective, come from our perspective. And that was very much collaboration, wasn't it? South Atlantic was based on the Falklands War, of course.
It was another great song to play live as well. Remember that?
Yeah, it's a really great arrangement.
Do you guys remember we played Goldsmiths College once when Rob Stringer was the Ents convener or whatever?
Yeah.
And it was a sellout, and I can remember, especially with South Atlantic Way, it was like, God almighty, we've arrived here. This was
one of our
much bigger sound.
Yeah. It was one of the things Russell said earlier about the Clash sort of connection. So we were all big fans of the Clash, probably more so me, Russell, and David.
Hey.
Robert, you were into the fucking Wombles. No, Robert is more like into T-Rex and all that, and before.
I've got Aubrey. I went to
no, Robert, you're a wee bit older. I'm saying David.
Oh, right.
I were 15.
You were really young Clash fans.
You were getting Tom Jones and all at this point.
I forgot.
We were more into the Clash sort of thing. Or Robert. Okay, Robert liked to Clash as well. We all liked to Clash, right? Robert's first band that Robert liked for the Clash, right?
It was.
No, Robert, I'm saying me, Russell, and David were into the Clash when we were 15. You were by this point about 19, so you were probably into other things before.
I got you.
Floyd, you were into Floyd.
Robert was into prog rock.
Yes.
Yes. Johnny Winter. Johnny Winter.
Genesis. No. what I'm saying is, it was good to play because it was like a wee bit clashy, like Russell was saying about red guitars and all that kind of stuff. It had that wee element of dig and, you know, bit punky.
Yeah,
a
great build to it as well. And
good song to play live then.
Yeah, it's very good to play live.
Yeah,
brilliant.
We did it on the tube. I love it. It's one of my favourite things we did. Did it on the tube, and
oh, that's great. Yeah, the tube's a good one to look up on YouTube as well. That's very good.
And it was great that you were allowed to do your 7-minute versions, you know, or your 10-minute versions of songs. It wasn't like pop shows with 3 minutes.
The Dave McCluskey drum solo, but
I could get a drum solo in.
With the drums going upside down, Dave, like that.
David, a wheel thing in it, right? He goes round and he's playing drums upside down. All his money's from his pockets, all the money's coming out, man. And his kilt's upside down, man. Right? You have to get to watch.
You had flames out your guitar, didn't you?
I had flames coming out, man.
I'll be frantically typing into YouTube after this call, so I will. Fantastic. And then that takes us on to the closing track of the album, The Patriots Game.
Come all you young rebels, endless while I sing, for the love of one's country is a terrible thing. It banishes fear with the speed of a flame, and makes us all part of the patriot game. My name is O'Hanlon, I've just turned 16. My home is in Monaghan, where I was weaned. I learned all my life injustice to blame, and so I am part of the patriot game. It's barely 2 years since I wandered away with a local battalion of the old IRA. They told me I'm hero, I wanted to sing, to play a great part in the patriot game. Ever trod, whose life is less sacred than all the old frauds, whose boyhood's less loving, whose vision's less vain than the old men who hate for the patriot game. And now I am dying, my body all whole. I think of the old men who bargained and sold. I'm sorry my rifle has not done the same to the rebels who sold out the patriot game.
Well, again, it came from, as Dave said, the sessions with Dominic Bean. So Dominic Bean, he ended up living in our house, basically. It seemed we were like 3rd year, 4th year at school. He just never went home one day, and he stayed for about 6 months.
The crack was mighty.
Yeah. Oh, we had a great laugh last night. I mean, he drank a bottle of whiskey each. You know what I mean? So it was. So anyway, he used to get sent home sometimes, and then his wife would phone up because Dominic had been on a program. It was a Ludovic Kennedy program in ITV. Before he moved up to Scotland, he was living in London. He's a poet, and he had a TV program called Poetry and Pints on Channel 4. And he was doing an interview with Ludovic Kennedy on the telly, and his ears just fucking exploded. You know, he had a hemorrhage, brain hemorrhage, on the telly, live on the telly. So his wife took him away to this wee country retreat, which is just south of Larkhall. It's in Lanarkshire. It's called Crawford. We've a place called Crawford John, near Crawford John and Lead Hills and all that. So, but once he got well, he started going a wee bit, oh, mate, just hitchhike into Glasgow or whatever. So he'd hitchhike to our house, or he'd get a lift to our house by hook or by, and he'd fucking disappear for a few days, which wasn't very good for his wife, obviously. And then he got a job. He got a job doing poetry for Glasgow schools and all that. So, as Dave says, parties, we had a bit of a party house, and I've always had a party house, or we've always had kind of party houses, even flats that I've been in and all that. But we had a bit of a party house as a kid, and David and I were the youngest, so we enjoyed it for the longest amount of time, probably. But Dominic would be up singing, oh, get up out your bed, fucking sing a song and all that, and which was great sometimes, and a pain in the arse other times. But one of the songs he would sing a lot was the Patriot Game, and we thought when we were working on South Atlantic Way, well, that's our version of what's happening, and the futility of war, and the idea of young men going to get fucking shot for somebody else's idea or somebody else's money or whatever. That's Dominic's version of it. So we thought we'd include that, but we asked Dominic to change the last 2 verses to make it more universal. Because the 4th verse is they told me how Connolly was shot in his chair. His body all bloody and bare and all that.
You couldn't sing that.
You can't really sing that in a pop, you know, you can't in a universal way. We're trying to
it wasn't our world anyway.
No, it's not our world. So we wanted it to be more universal and more for, it could be any situation. It could be somebody joining the British Army. It could be somebody becoming a Bosnian Serb militiaman or a fucking, you know, Serbo-Croat militiaman or whatever, you know, or whatever. So we were looking at all these wars beginning to happen, like, you know, with Chechnya and all these things that were happening because it was the beginning of the end of the Iron Curtain, as David mentioned earlier. And so there's all these new nation states fighting for their own country and nationalism and blah, 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 blah. So it was about the futility of war and somebody joining a young man being egged on by older people to do their part in their freedom fight or whatever. And is it right, or was it right? It was the right thing to do, and it leaves a question.
And John, we recorded it quite early. We did that one in the Nick Lowe studio way back before we even started the album. So it was always in our head to have it on the album. I don't know why it didn't end up on the album with Terry Soothman again. You know, it's a great version.
But you get all sorts of problems. I remember playing in Guruk and going on and people going, "Fiend, you bastards!"
And then the opposite, we put the QM John, right? Everybody had their fist up in the air, man. It was like, it was like,
or the opposite, sell out bastards, fucking sticky bastards. So you couldn't really win. You're just having a conversation in the song, but if they don't listen to the lyrics,
it was a guy reflecting on his life, you know, who's been in a paramilitary organization, and he's reflecting on his life, having gone through that whole. Well, you know, the guy's dying. He's 16. He's 16. He's dying. He's going, "What the fuck am I dying for?"
What was
that about? Yeah. And it's also that looking at that, you know, the love of one's country is a terrible thing. The way that patriotism can be a great thing, but it can be a horrific thing. You become a fascist. It's just all about preserving your own culture and you know, rejecting every other culture. So we know there's a really vicious cycle there.
Also, to back that up, David, we had an internationalist. Openness, you know, we want people to come to this country. We want to meet people from different cultures, and you know, we don't want to be 100% white, Scottish, Anglo-Saxon, Irish, whatever the fuck. You know, I'm not interested. We've got an open view. international politics, international everything.
Yeah,
A lot of our
borders.
grandparents, you know, were refugees, you know, or were people coming out of this country, escaping, you know.
Both of us, I mean, all of us are
Over to-
Italian, Irish, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Italian.
Yeah, and we also had that thing that our grandparents, Irish Donegal Catholic, married Orange Protestant, and they get their house torched in 1921, and that's why we're here. That's our real story.
Yeah, Govan Protestant marries Italian.
Yeah.
You know.
So they got torched out, so that's why we're here. So it's a really important thing to say, well, what the fuck's that about?